Rosie, I'm going to use my olives to make some beautiful meatballs. I love meatballs.
I know.
It's one of those things that I make at home with the family. I even make them when I'm at home alone. You know, just make some beautiful little meatballs up. They're delicious. What I'm going to put in the meatballs is, of course, olives. I love the saltiness of them, the fleshiness of them. We're going to start with making the filling for the meatballs or the stuffing or the flavouring for the meatballs. I've got a garlic clove there. If you can microplane that.
Sure.
Also got some basil. Beautiful fresh basil. Tear it all up, give it a bit of a rough
We're going traditional, I like it.
We are. We're not going to do anything that's over the top. Now, I've got some olives here. If you're going to chop up your olives, make sure you pitted them. And, of course, with the olives, you can use any sort of olives. The delicatessen that I have in my supermarket has about 30 different varieties, some of them marinated in chilli, in garlic, anchovies. There's any sort of olive you can get nowadays.
You've got to get that marinade right.
Now, these green olives have been pitted already, and I've just chopped them up a little bit. These ones here have got little grill marks on them. They're a little bit smoky in flavour.
Yeah.
So you can just about have any sort of olive that you possibly want. Now, I'm just going to chop these up nice and fine like this, but I'm going to leave a little bit of texture with them because when I'm eating that meatball, I want to actually see bits and pieces of olive through it, and I also want to taste the olive, which is really important. That's what we're putting in it, so we want to taste it at least, don't we?
Taste it,
There we go. Now, I'm going to pull this bowl in here, and if you can throw the garlic and the basil straight in there, and I'll put the olives straight in here. And what I'm going to add is some meat. Now, I've got some chicken mince here that you can put in here. I've got some pork mince as well that I'm going to throw in here. And I've also got some beautiful Australian grass-fed beef mince. And now, of course, you could use either of these or a combination of them. You know, I like to just make up my mince and make it up as I go along. I find the more meat I add to it, the more different types of meat, the more flavour I get.
I put a bunch of different beans in there. Have kidney beans, butter beans, all sorts of different things.
Butter beans, there we go, I like that. Now, if you can grab some of the breadcrumbs there and the eggs, what I want you to do is put in about a quarter of the breadcrumbs that you've got there. I find putting breadcrumbs into your meatballs makes them nice and light and fluffy. And if you crack one of those eggs into here as well,
got it.
There we go, and the egg helps to bind it all together. Now, we're cooking some meat here, Rosie, so you know what goes into meat, don't you? Salt. Loves meat and meat loves salt. If you can grab some of the salt over that side and some pepper and give that a good old sprinkle of salt.
We do need to keep in mind there will be a bit of salt from the olive though as well, won't there?
Very, very well spotted, Rosie. Yeah, there we go. So the olives are quite salty, so it's a good idea to maybe have a taste of it. And one of the things you can do to taste the meat here, because you probably don't want to put your fingers in there and grab out and taste the mince, although I've done it many times. You probably what you want to do is grab some of your seasoned mix here, pop it into the fry pan, give it a bit of a sizzle, and if it's seasoned correctly, then continue. If you think it needs a little bit more salt, you could always just add a little bit more salt and mix it.
Good tip, Richo.
That way you know you've properly seasoned at all times. So I'll squish that around like that, and I love using my hands to mix it around. I find it's much, much better than using a wooden spoon. Now, Rosie, I'm going to roll these up because this is the fun part that I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is grab my meatballs like that, make sure I just clean off my hand on the side here. A good tip is you could wet your hands in a little bit of water and the meatballs won't stick. So I'm going to roll them like that. A nice size, a little bit bigger than an olive, and I'm going to pop them in the pan. I'll drizzle some extra virgin olive oil into the pan with the meatballs, and then once they're sizzled and browned on all sides, I've got a beautiful tomato passata there that I'm going to pour over the top of it. Let it sizzle for 5 or 6 minutes until it's all nicely cooked. And then I'll put my pasta in the water, cook that, and bring the whole thing together. Rosie, I am full of excitement because my meatballs have been simmering away in the sauce. I put a little bit of butter in there. I always put butter in the end of my tomato sauce. I find it just richens it up. And because I love you so much, Rosie, I know that you're going to miss out on these meatballs and be so depressed and upset. And, you know, I know all these things. So what I'm going to do is grab some of your tapenade, which I, by the way, think is incredible. I think it's really flavoursome and really tasty. And I'm going to show you that it's almost going to be equal and may even be better than my meatballs. I don't know if that's possible, but we're going to give it a go. Now, the pasta's cooked. We've given it the recommended amount. And the thing with pasta, always look on the packet. It tells you how long to cook it. A little tip for me is I always undercook it by about a minute or so. There we go. In goes the spaghetti into your pan here. And I'm just going to toss that off nice and gently. what you want to do is try and get some of that all the way through the pasta without getting too much of it on the bench. There's a little tip for you. Now, Rosie, I'm going to grab a...
Goodness.
This is a big portion for you. I know you're a little eater. You eat like a sparrow sometimes, don't you?
I do sometimes, yeah.
So a bit of teppanyaki on the top there. Move that bowl over to there, Rosie.
Wonderful.
There we go. Pop some cheese on top of that.
While you do that, I will do my cheese. Don't you worry about that.
And I'm going to pop the spaghetti straight into my pan here.
Wow.
What I do with the spaghetti is I pop it into the pasta sauce and let it sit there for a minute or so. You want that pasta to soak up some of that sauce. You liking that?
I love it.
There we go. Put it around like that.
This is gorgeous.
I'll turn it on and let that sit there. Now, I'm going to toss this a little bit, and I would recommend if you are tossing this at home, be really careful. Maybe don't wear a good shirt. Yeah. Maybe get someone else to do it outside, or if you're practicing this for the first time, go outside on the grass and give it a bit of a toss. Maybe put a garbage bag over your head and cut a hole so your head pops out through the top. When I do take the pasta out, I give it a little bit of salt there like that just to make it nice and tasty. Grab it like that and just give it a little bit of a toss around like that and allow that sauce to soak into the pasta. Have we allowed it to soak in for long enough?
Yes.
Yeah, we have. There we go.
We have.
So we're going to pull it out and pop it into the bowl here. I love serving meatballs in a big bowl like this and putting it in the middle of the table. There's something about it, something old school. And a little tip, if you want to pop the pasta into the sauce, what I do is have the sauce just a little bit thin. I'll add some stock to it or just a little bit of water to it. That makes it luscious. And of course, I always add the butter to it, which makes it even more luscious. Pull it out like that. And you can see I did a little tricky thing. I pulled the spaghetti out first and then poured the meatballs on top there like that.
Over there.
Rosie, can we have some cheese, please?
Oh, of course you can. That is a room pleaser, that one, isn't it?
You were in awe looking at those meatballs.
They're
and
beautiful.
You don't eat meatballs, but
they're beautiful.
you just love them,
If I did, they would be my favourite, Richard. I know it.
I'm going to tuck into mine, you tuck into yours. And I reckon this is a better way of serving it with the pasta. It's going to fill you up and give you a lovely flavour, isn't it?
Love it.
There we go. Now I'm going to cut my meatball in half. You can see it's cooked all the way through. I always do a little test of the meatballs, make sure they're cooked. But usually after about 15 to 20 minutes simmering away in the tomato sauce, they're going to be bang on and cooked.
Look, I love olives. This wasn't going to be hard for me to love the dish, but you're right. Bit of heat onto there, absolutely divine. Very simple, doesn't need anything else. It's absolutely gorgeous.
That is a big portion. It is way too much for one person. But I'll tell you what, the meatballs with spaghetti, classic dish. They've been doing it for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It is a crack of a dish, nice and simple. But the olives do really pick up a pasta, don't they?
Yeah, it's confirmed. We love olives.